This year's commencement address will be delivered by Danny Meyer.
There we go. President Berger Sweeney, members of the Board of Trustees, distinguished members of the faculty, proud parents, remarkable members of the class of 2024. Congratulations to each one of you for completing one of life's great journeys. This is an extraordinary liberal arts college, and you have made the best of it. It's my great honor to celebrate this proud moment along with you. Your commitment, hard work, and perseverance have all paid off, and I'm confident that you are more than ready now to write the next amazing chapters in the book of you. I want to take this moment also to thank once again the parents who have had so much to do with forming who you are to get you here. I was here with my own parents 44 years ago, and I'm really grateful to know that my mother can watch this, thanks to technology, in St. Louis in real time. So thank you, Trinity, for making that happen. Back when I was graduating beneath these same elms, our speaker expressed his confidence that at last we were ready to enter the real world. Well, with all due respect, class of 2024, you don't need me to tell you that you've already been living in the real world. Your years have coincided with abundant adversity, and you are the generation our world needs more than ever to thoughtfully engage in solving some really tough problems. Your experiences while at Trinity have shown to you that active listening, engaging in courageous dialogue, and assuming the best intentions of others is almost always the best way forward. Please employ those skills generously. They will stand you and the world in very good stead. And as you listen to my stories today, I want you to focus on three messages. First, whenever you set off on a certain destination, be aware that the only real certainty is that you will encounter all kinds of surprising twists and turns along the way. The good news is that those surprises can actually work in your favor. So long as you're willing to challenge your own preconceived assumptions and be open to new possibilities, you will put yourself in a position to open unexpected doors, any one of which might just change the course of your life. Second, as you make the big choices, while it may be tempting to do the thing that others expect you to do, I challenge each one of you to listen carefully to your gut, to follow your passion, your heart, and to pursue what you really love. The best decisions I've made in my life have almost always stemmed from listening to my gut, which is at least as smart as my other brain and has always guided me as a most reliable compass. And third, just like the decision you made to enroll at this school, consider that all the important choices you'll be making from today forward are opportunities for active acts of enrollment. And each act of enrollment, whether it's taking a job or investing in a friendship, signing an apartment lease, committing to a life partner, having a child, or even just getting a puppy, each one of those acts should be viewed as an opportunity to commit, to go deeper, and to grow where you are planted. Of course, it's crucial to set aspirational goals and to go for what you want in life. But as someone who has never had a 5-year plan, I've also found that it's at least as thrilling when a compelling idea unexpectedly comes knocking on my door and that I'm prepared to open it and walk in. I think it's true that good luck favors the prepared. Your Trinity degree will open many doors for you, and rather than focusing only on the potential downsides of an opportunity, try hard to let yourself be open to the upside. I hope you will consider the most important question I ask myself every single day. What could possibly go right? Each of the stories I'm going to share with you now began with my being open to upside possibilities, listening to my gut and enrolling in something I had never quite planned for. Let's start with this. I never even expected to apply to Trinity in the first place. But thanks to a chance meeting in Rome between my father and Trinity's then General Counsel, Tom Lips, my dad and I decided to visit the campus. Tom was good enough to host a dinner for us along with his wife, sold me on applying to Trinity, and even sent me home with a beautiful drawing of Trinity's chapel, encouraging me to hang it in my freshman dorm room when I would get to Trinity. I thought I was in. But on a spring St. Louis afternoon in mid-March 1976, as I neared the high school finish line with a Hall of Fame case of senioritis, I anxiously awaited the daily visit from our mailman so that I could find out which of the 3 schools to which I had applied had accepted me. Yes, just 3. The postman pulled up to our mailbox, and I ran out to learn where I'd be spending the next 4 years of my life. There was a lot of mail that day, but it was easy to pick out the letters addressed to me. They were the 3 razor-thin envelopes, each one containing just a single sheet of paper. Rejected from Princeton, rejected from Brown, waitlisted at Trinity, and accepted nowhere. Far from being my safety school, Trinity would need to become my savior school. I sat down to write the most important letter of my entire life to Trinity's Dean of Admissions, explaining why I knew that we were just right for each other. I committed to enrolling at Trinity if only they would take me off the wait list. Well, clearly, I wouldn't be here with you today had the admissions department not found it in their hearts to find a spot for me. And I will tell you that attending Trinity, a school I had barely even been aware of growing up in St. Louis before applying here, had been the furthest thing from my mind when I had first set out to apply to colleges. It's not a stretch to say that the 4 years I spent here completely changed the course of my life, and in specific ways no other school could have. And I'd like to explain. As an off-the-waitlist freshman student, I had a lot to prove both to myself and to Trinity. I had been a world-class underachiever in high school, and as a Trinity freshman, I vowed to rectify things by going on performance overdrive, enrolling in any opportunity I could find, and applying myself as never before. I selected political science as my major, joined the college radio station as news director, and became the school's first freshman to enroll in the legislative internship program for my spring semester. With that internship, I was given permission to have a car on campus, something freshmen back then were not entitled to have, and I persuaded my parents to allow me to drive the old station wagon from St. Louis to Hartford. That car reliably got me back and forth from the state capitol, but even more importantly, I used it as my vehicle for discovery, feeding my curiosity and developing my passions. In that car, I explored the neighborhoods and restaurants of Hartford, and every 3rd or 4th weekend, I would head to New York City to experience the electric jolt of the Big Apple, going to incredible restaurants, jazz clubs, Broadway shows, art museums. I even drove that car from Hartford to Belmont Park Racetrack, honing my horse race handicapping skills so that I could teach a class on how to pick winners at the races for Trinity's Free University. I never imagined that one day I would open a restaurant in New York, nor that eventually I'd be serving food in art museums, theaters, a jazz club, and even in racetracks and ballparks. Each one of those interests nurtured while I was at Trinity. During my junior year, I helped to organize Trinity's first international politics seminar for the Rome campus, along with one of my beloved poli-sci professors, Bert Gassman. Dr. Gassman said he would be very open to teaching a semester-long curriculum for us in Rome, and the registrar promised he would give it the green light if only we could succeed at finding 10 other poli-sci students to enroll. Well, that part was easy. Who in the world wouldn't want to spend a spring semester studying their favorite subject in Rome? My classmates and I studied Italian political history. We took advanced Italian language classes, interned at the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, and did research at historic libraries throughout the city. I would always select my go-to library based on its proximity to wherever I could find the best cafe macchiato or gelato. I got pretty good at speaking Italian and became expert at reading restaurant menus. I used every possible free moment I had to scour the city's trattorias and ate at as many of them as I could afford. I was literally listening to my gut and unwittingly gaining a culinary education that would serve me in a future career I had never consciously considered. Returning to Trinity for my senior year, I rejoined WRTC, this time as a jazz DJ with my own show called Jazz Set with Dan Meyer. I continued along the path of my political science major, and as many of you may now be doing, I started to imagine my post-college future. The day after graduation, I shifted into high gear, trying to figure out what to do with the rest of my life. Given my poli-sci major and deep interest in learning just about everything possible going on in the news, I returned home to the Midwest, and my first job was working pro bono in the political affairs department for the Chicago Public TV station. Next, I took a paying job as the Cook County field coordinator for Congressman John Anderson's independent presidential campaign. I had been volunteering on political campaigns since I was 10 years old, and thanks to my Trinity degree, this time I would actually be paid. I earned a whopping $214 a week. For those of you history buffs, John Anderson earned 6.6% of the popular vote, which was decent for a third-party candidate, but he was still trounced by Ronald Reagan and the incumbent Jimmy Carter. The 1980 presidential race offered me a valuable learning experience, not just in politics, but also in leadership. Because before that job, I had never been anyone's boss. And since 100% of the campaign workers who reported to me were volunteers, I had to learn the importance of leading and motivating people with a higher purpose rather than a higher paycheck. I hope you will all be fortunate enough to find work whose purpose is as rewarding as your paycheck. Exhausted from the campaign, I decided to take a break from politics, and I spent a year of my life in New York City, just to experience what that city was like to live in. And after that, I would move back home to the Midwest. Those were my certain plans. At this point, I was not focusing on any specific career path. In fact, I was open to taking practically any job to help pay my New York City rent for that 1 year. I interviewed for a job that had absolutely nothing to do with politics, journalism, or law, but it was a job. I would be special projects manager for a company that sold electronic tags to prevent shoplifters. I would be paid $16,500 a year, barely enough to afford the one-bedroom walk-up apartment I was sharing with a classmate from Trinity. My boss assigned me to train under one of the company's top salesmen who was responsible for the entire New York territory. I tagged along on his sales calls every day and began to learn how to sell, turning an intuitive gift for pleasing people into an intentional strategy. Within just 2 months of joining the company, the man who had been training me was lured away by our chief competitor. And despite having practically no sales experience, the company offered me his job, responsible for all of New York. I thought for a moment about what it might be like to tell my parents that I would be parlaying my Trinity education into selling a product to catch shoplifters. But I was the boss of my own life now, just as you are. And so I listened to my gut, and I went for it. After all, what could possibly go right? I quickly learned that sales was a very important skill to have, and just as swiftly discovered that I was good at it. I loved working for myself, out of my own apartment office, and enjoyed the perk of having my own company car with a fully paid garage space, something none of my friends in Manhattan had. I would hop around town in my powder blue Volkswagen Rabbit to make sales calls in some of New York's sketchier neighborhoods, the ones where shoplifting was the most rampant. I would schedule all of my sales appointments to be convenient to whichever local restaurant I had scoped out for my lunch break. I also found out that I was highly motivated by earning commissions. Almost overnight, the young guy in the powder blue Rabbit had become the company's top salesperson. A job I had never imagined having or wanting had come knocking on my door, and I never expected I would be making $125,000 a year in sales commissions. That was a hell of a lot of money back then, and it was ample incentive to keep living in New York beyond the 1 year I had promised myself. I invested a lion's share of my commissions into the company's public stock, which at the time grew from around $3 to $13 per share. To this day, I regret taking only one economics class while I was at Trinity. But despite that, I was now getting some pretty solid financial schooling. As much fun as I was having making enough money to really enjoy New York City, I was 25, and I already knew that sales would not be my last job. So I decided it was time to get serious about my future. Many of my friends seemed to have already chosen their permanent vocations. Reinsurance, banking, accounting, consulting were really big back then. None of those appealed to me whatsoever, and increasingly I became anxious about missing my own career boat. So I turned my attention back to the things my diploma and internal self-talk had told me I was supposed to pursue: journalism or law. I summoned the courage to resign my sales job and embarked on a tour of graduate schools. I enjoyed visiting a handful of campuses, but the most memorable part of those school trips was the opportunity to experience the local restaurants, especially in San Francisco and Chicago. By this time, I had lost interest in pursuing a career in journalism, but with the continuing interest in politics, I decided I should apply to law school. After all, what was my poli-sci degree for anyway? The night before taking my LSAT, my aunt and uncle invited me to join them for dinner at Elio's, my favorite Upper East Side Italian restaurant. I knew I would need to make it an especially early Friday night, and seeing that I was in an uncharacteristically anxious mood, my uncle asked me whether something was wrong. "I need to take my LSAT tomorrow morning," I said. "Well, of course you do," he countered. "You want to be a lawyer, don't you?" I looked away. "Actually," I said, "I don't think so." My uncle was incredulous, almost angry. "Do you have any idea how long you're going to be dead?" "No," I responded. "Well, I have no idea either," he said, "but I'll tell you one thing, you're going to be dead a hell of a lot longer than you're going to be alive. Why in the world would you waste your precious life pursuing something you have no passion for?" "Because I'm not sure what else I could do," I said, growing more meek by the moment. "You got to be kidding me," said my uncle. "For your entire life, all I've ever heard you talk about is how much you love food and restaurants." I asked, "So are you suggesting I just eat in restaurants for the rest of my life?" "Of course not. You should open one." This possibility was something that had never even remotely occurred to me. Hadn't I spent the last several years of my life preparing for a real career in a real field, one that my family would actually approve of? What would they say if I were to tell them that I had scrapped my interest in journalism and law and was now trading it all in to go into the restaurant business? Back in the 1980s, no one did that. Restaurants were not considered anywhere close to being a valid career choice for someone privileged enough to have earned a bachelor's degree in political science from Trinity College. I tossed and turned in bed that night, and early the next morning I took the LSAT. But my mind was distracted. By pointing to a passion of mine that was in plain sight right under my nose, my uncle had seriously activated an itch in me, whose existence I had been repressing to the point of being in deep denial. The next day, I called a former roommate and fraternity brother from Trinity. Like many of my friends at the time, he was putting his econ major to use working at a bank training program on Wall Street. I said to him, "I think I want to open a restaurant. Want to join me? I'll be the food guy, you be the money guy." I invited him to take a restaurant management course with me. Calling upon my sales skills, I said, "Just take the class with me. Maybe you'll like it." Well, I took the initiative to enroll the two of us. My friend joined me for the first 2 of 12 classes, but I could see that his heart was not in it at all. And after the second class, wisely, he let me know that he would be dropping out. I was disappointed, but I knew that this was my passion, not his. He generously arranged for me to get a job interview with the one restaurant client his bank worked with. After a 2-minute interview, during which the restaurateur simply looked me up and down from head to toe, paused for 2 seconds, and then concluded, "You'll do." I hope your interviews are that easy. I found myself with a new job offer. For $250 a week, I would be the restaurant's assistant lunch manager. I needed to scratch my restaurant itch, and fortunately had saved more than enough money from my sales commissions to be able to afford to take this job. I asked myself, what could possibly go right? And so I accepted the offer. This would be the only way to find out whether or not life in the restaurant business might be for me. If I liked it, I'd keep working until I had learned enough to open a restaurant of my own. And if I hated it, I could just as easily get another job and return to simply eating in restaurants. It turns out that an itch may be one of the gut's most effective ways of expressing itself. Listen carefully when you get that itch. Minutes after beginning my first morning of work on this job, I had never anticipated, which I had only gotten via an introduction from a friend who I had met at a school I had never imagined attending and nearly hadn't even gotten into, something went very right. Just as I was heading down the stairs to the restaurant's basement to answer the reservations phone, running up those stairs was a beautiful young woman carrying a tray of butter-filled ramekins. Our eyes met with a smiling glance, and that was that. Day one, and I already sensed I was going to like this new career. But on my second day of work, she was gone. Doing some discreet but determined detective work, I learned that the woman with whom I had exchanged that brief smile was an actress named Audrey, and that she would be away for 10 weeks, having just been cast to play Sarah Brown, the lead role in Guys and Dolls, at a dinner theater in Indiana. Well, that was fun while it lasted. I fell in love with restaurant life, and after just 7 months, it was very clear to me that I wanted to open a restaurant of my own. To bolster my experience and preparation, I made plans to study professional cooking in Italy and France. Audrey had now returned to the restaurant, and there was just one more thing I had to take care of. On my final day of work at the restaurant, before going to Europe, I gathered the courage to ask her out. Despite my telling Audrey that it was now my turn to be away for a few months, it was a promising first date. We went to a Broadway play, dined and drank at 3 different restaurants, and did not run out of things to talk about well into the morning. A few weeks later, I was off to Europe, and I spent a month by myself in Italy, eating my way through Rome, Bologna, and Sardinia. Tough life. I took classes from a cookbook author in Milan, putting the Italian language skills I had learned at Trinity to very good daily use. I had also taken some French at Trinity, and France would be next, where I enrolled as a kitchen stagiaire at 2 restaurants in Bordeaux. My dream was to create a restaurant that, if only it existed, would be my favorite restaurant in the world. Well, less than 1 year later, at 27 years old, I opened Union Square Cafe. What could possibly go right? It turns out a lot. This may sound odd, but I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. I've now been in the hospitality business for 40 years, and I've always found all kinds of ways to shake things up for myself, reimagine my career, and to keep it fresh. Sometimes I do that by imagining a new restaurant to open, and there have been a lot of them. I've written cookbooks, a business book, launched a hospitality consulting business, and even started an investment fund with another of my Trinity roommates. I've joined all kinds of outside boards, some for profit, some philanthropic, and notably some wonderful years here at Trinity College. I always strive to follow my passions, keep growing, learning, and asking myself what could possibly go right. And crucially, at almost every step of the way, I've managed to avoid a trap, which I used to set for myself, and I truly hope you never will. And that is to pursue things to please others, taking the expected path a voice tells me I should do, while ignoring my gut and what my heart tells me I want to do. There was a time that I was nearly immobilized, trying to make the perfect next choice for what I imagined others expected of me, when all I needed to have done was to make the next good choice for me. Audrey and I have now been married for almost 36 years. She has a thriving acting and singing career, and we are blessed to have 4 wonderful children, each one of whom, I'm proud to say, is avidly pursuing their own respective passions. Hallie is making ice cream, Charles is making music, Peyton will be a doctor, and Gretchen, a bantam and trinitone who graduated on this very lawn with the class of 2020, is now a teacher getting her master's in social work and early childhood special education. We are blessed to have a son-in-law and a granddaughter who we adore. We go to Italy at least once a year, and we even have an Italian truffle dog named Macchiato. I did not and could not have planned for any of this. Not Trinity College, not this family, not New York, not a career in hospitality, not Shake Shack, not the honor of being with you today. None of it. With the benefit of time and hindsight, I'm pretty confident that the most consequential day in my life was the day that Trinity College waitlisted me, followed by the day I was accepted here and committed to enrolling. because that first day ignited a lifetime of fire in my belly to prove to myself that I could measure up. And the second day set up nearly every single unexpected blessing in my life, beginning with my family and, of course, my career. So much that is great in my life today owes its origins to things that happened for me because I enrolled here. I'm confident that there are abundant abstract pieces of your lives, many connected to your 4 years here, that will also fit together in ways you cannot possibly know today. Congratulations again to the class of 2024 for the amazing achievement each one of you is celebrating today. And as you embark on your next journey, I encourage you to follow your dreams. Always listen to your gut and to your heart. Stay true to your values. Work hard. Be kind to people. Address conflict head-on by engaging in constructive dialogue. Be an active citizen. Vote. And above all, always stay wide open to the unexpected possibilities that present themselves to you when you ask yourself, what could possibly go right? Thank you.